Turn it up, it's the pancake and power slam. Turn it up, it's the pancake and power slam. Turn it up, it's the pancake and power slam show. Turn it up, it's the pancake and power slam. Turn it up, it's the pancake and power slam. Turn it up, it's the pancake and power slam show. Turn it up.
What is up, everybody? What is up, everybody? This is another episode of the Pancakes and Power Slams, ladies and gentlemen. Come on in. You know what time it is. We're going to have a really interesting topic today, man. Interesting topic. Let's see here. Yes, there we go. Interesting topic today, y'all. Interesting topic that many have been wanting me to talk about for a long time. And with the newest, share the link. It's share time, by the way. With the latest stuff that we've been hearing about people almost having a divorce over pro wrestling. Are you kidding? Huh? What are we doing here? What are we doing? What are we doing here? So I'm going to talk about the psychology of being a pro wrestling mark. Mark. Yeah. So very, very, very interesting. I'm really, really looking forward to talking about this. It's gonna be fun. So let's get it. I'm also going to discuss a Reddit article. And so yeah, it's going to be lots of fun. So come on in, share the link, do all that jazz that comes with that, and let's get into it. Chats are adding up here. Chats are adding up, and what makes somebody a mark, and not the way that Tony Khan would say it. Not Tony Khan, Tony Atlas. Mark Henry. Mark Henry. Not that type of Mark. Not a Mark Henry type of Mark, but a obsessed wrestling fan Mark. A pro wrestling Mark. So yeah, you want people to learn. You want people to know about this show tonight because you want to share it with people. You definitely want to share this show. If there's any class that I've done throughout the past few months that I've been doing these classes, if there's any class that you want to share with your friends and hit that repost and share this copy on YouTube and share with all your friends and share on your page, it's this one. It's this one for sure. It's this one here. Yeah. So we're going to have a good time talking about this, and I'm going to break it down from a standpoint of psychology, like I do each and every week. Look, hey, you can feel how you feel and feel what you want to feel, but I'm going to break down the science behind this stuff, man. I'm not just saying this stuff because it's just some random opinion. I'm saying this stuff because there's scientific and backing. There's psychological science, psychological sciences, social sciences. There's proof, there's data to show these topics. So be sure to let the listeners know and share this link because we're going to talk about what is the psychology behind a pro wrestling mark. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's get into it, man. It might offend a few of you. Might offend a few of you, but hey, man, if I lived to not worry, if I lived to worry about who was going to be offended about the truth, yeah, that would be a horrible life to live, ladies and gentlemen. So I'm going to tell the truth. I'm going to share the truth. I'm going to share the psychological data behind a mark. All right, so the mark. So what is a mark, man? What is a mark? A mark, it's a term that's used really all over the place in the pro wrestling world, but it's someone who is a fan of a sport, someone who's a fanatic of a sport, is very, very in tune to a sport, has a strong level of affinity for a sport, a paying customer that is very much into a sport. All right. So from a pro wrestling standpoint, it goes back to even like Carney days. Mark was used. The term mark has been used for a long time. It wasn't as negatively, it didn't have such a negative connotation as it does now. But at the same time, it is definitely morphed into having a very negative connotation that the internet deems a mark nowadays to be someone who is just way too obsessed with the sport of professional wrestling. All right. So if you're a pro wrestling mark, you're just way too obsessed with the sport of professional wrestling. So understanding that backdrop, where the term mark has become, you're just too obsessed. You're way too obsessed that it's become a point of danger. It's become a dangerous obsession. Really, any obsession, many obsessions is dangerous. But when it comes to pro wrestling, the obsession with pro wrestling is quite dangerous. And I'm going to read this Reddit post here at the end of my class here. Part of my class. I'm gonna read it. Of course, Ask Doc. Hashtag Ask Doc is the way to go, and I'll read the questions at the end, just like I do every single time. All right. So here's the thing. So when it comes to like someone who's a avid sports fan, all right, sports fandom by itself is something that is very positive. There's actually a lot of positive data that shows actually the benefits of sports fandom. From a communal standpoint, it enhances social health. If again, these are all based on you being a sports fan in conjunction with you having positive emotional health and social health. All right. So the sports fandom in and of itself is very positive. It's a healthy source of dopamine. It creates a sense of camaraderie. It creates an opportunity for people to find a shared interest that actually increases communal health and social health. And so there's a lot of very positive aspects to sports fandom. Again, in conjunction with positive and overall positive emotional regulation and overall positive just psychological regulation and overall positive mental health. All right. So if you have those components, you being a sports fan is very, very positive. Unfortunately, what we've seen throughout the past few decades, particularly in the realm of professional wrestling, is that we're starting to see people who are assimilating, who are merging poor emotional and social health with pro wrestling fandom. And that is a recipe to becoming a mark. Absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt. So here's the thing: sports fandom in general, it has significant neurological impact. There's a neuroscientist named from UCLA. His name is Marco Iacoboni. He actually wrote this book called Mirroring One Another. It's called Mirroring People. I read some excerpts from it. It's actually a pretty solid book from what I've read so far. I've read excerpts from it, and it actually brings the neurological component into the neuropsychological component into sports fandom. And it's really, well, even copycat, even why people copycat and why people feel so emotionally tied into things, not just particularly sports, but he does mention sports as well. But it actually talks about just mirroring people when it comes to a concept called mirror neurons. And so basically with the mirror neurons, when you're a fan, it fires the same level of neurons or similar levels of neurons as if you were actually on the field yourself. And so basically that concept is a mirroring effect, and it activates similar muscle movement and even similar movement. It shares similar movement properties between the fan and the athlete. And so the neurons that you're sharing, you're getting so emotionally invested, you're sharing those neurons, and there is a very similar feeling that you have when those neurons are shared between fan and athlete. And it's not just fan and athlete, it's also on television too. Like if you see a heart wrenching scene and why do people cry when they watch movies? Why do people get upset when they watch movies? Why do people have fear when they're watching horror movies, as if they're in the room and hiding from the scary guy, whoever that is? Those are neurons. Those are mirror neurons that are sharing similar properties as the actor, as the person on the television screen, as the athlete. And so we as human beings get so just encapsulated to the point of us sharing those types of feelings, that we get so emotionally tied into those things. When we share very similar signs of distress when we get emotional when we watch television screens. And so basically, we get empathy for characters. We get a sense of pain when people are suffering. So basically, a good television show, a good sense of acting, a good sport, a very engaging game. All of those things have the ability to trigger those mirror neurons that gives us the ability to be in the game. I take my sons. I spend some time with my sons. I have 3 kids. Many of you know that, but my sons and I, we go to the barber often, and so that's the time for us to just kind of just hang out. One of the many times for us to just hang out. I just spend time with my boys, and we were watching. We were at the barbershop, and we were watching the Indiana Pacers and the Milwaukee Bucks game. And so we were really getting into it. Like my older son, he's really big into like anime and stuff like that. But he plays sports. He doesn't he watches sports, but he's not super into it like my middle child, my youngest son. He's like my youngest son is like really into sports, especially college football. My oldest son is more of the player. He plays sports. He's really good in sports. He was just a part of a last season. He was part of a championship basketball team. Really good on defense. Made some clutch shots. Made some clutch free throw shots. So he's super athletic. Both of them are athletic to an extent. But my oldest, he's the one. They both look like athletes. My oldest is like athlete. My youngest son is like he's the journalist, he's the researcher, and so it's an interesting dynamic. So both of those minds were watching this this playoff game. So for those who aren't following the NBA playoffs, Indiana was up 3-1. Basically, if Indiana won, the series is over. They would have won 4-1. So it was just back and forth. It was actually a really good game, minus the typical NBA flop calls, ridiculous foul calls, non-travel calls, stuff that comes with the NBA nowadays that makes it very difficult to digest. But the back and forth and the fluctuation of lead changes and the oscillation of lead changes was very engaging. So we were all just really into it. And all 4 of us, the 3 of us, me and my 2 boys, and my friend who has a barbershop, and all 3 of us barber, all 4 of us was watching the tail end of the game. And so there were seconds left in the game, and we were watching the game. They ended up going to overtime. So it was lead changes into the very wire. All right. And so they were like, Dad, can we watch the rest of the game in the truck? And so, okay, absolutely. Because we did that before with another game that was during the NCAA basketball tournament that was down to the wire too. And so we were, so I had the TV up in the truck, and they were watching the game. And again, it came down to the wire. Milwaukee ended up, they were winning by as much as like 6 points, like 40 seconds left. And a lot of us, basically all 3 of us to an extent were like, yeah, that's the game. Okay, but there's some time left. So what ended up happening was at the very tail end of the game, I think it was Gary Trent Jr. or Greg Trent Jr. Trent Jr. He lost the ball and it gave Indiana the ball back. Halliburton got the ball, drove it in, made the game-winning shot. We were like, "Oh my gosh!" And and as they were getting to dinner, and as I was going down to work, as they were going to bed, both of them were just so like, thanks for playing the game, Dad. I had so much fun watching the game with you, Dad." Both of them were super into that feeling, that bonding that we had as father and sons watching this game, getting into it, and they really were into it. And not only were they watching the game, but they were bonding with their dad, and they were thanking me. They thanked me multiple times that I was able to play the game with them and bond with them and have fun with them and just kind of go with the ebbs and flows. So that is the very positive aspect of sports fandom. Here's the thing, though, with the mirror neurons, though, when it comes to a negative standpoint from someone, again, when you're integrating a sports fan with someone who's not emotionally stable or psychologically stable and have poor emotional management skills, that's when you get to an addictive dopamine kick that is just very, very unhealthy, and it's oftentimes associated with violence. A lot of times we see these pro wrestling fans nowadays, they want that it's the "this is awesome," it's the pop. You want to see Darby Allin jump off a glass. You want to see someone gets speared through a barricade, and that person's the heel, but the heel gets cheered for doing that big spot. It is the fan. It's psychologically, it's the fans having that insatiable appetite for violence. And we saw this from a very, very renowned psychologist named Albert Ventura. He brought really a social cognitive aspect into the world of psychology. Basically, there was a behaviorist model that was kind of like the standing template or the standing framework from a current perspective back in the 60s. There was a more of a behaviorist perspective when we were thinking of someone like a Maslow and things like that. And before that, it was even more of a so it was more of a humanistic, and then the behaviorists before that, and before that was more of a psychodynamic with Sigmund Freud, and Carl Jung was a contemporary. He was in between. He was in that vein as well. About the 1930s. Around there. And so in the 60s, Bandura brings in more of a social cognitive or observational learning perspective when it comes to psychology. And he did this study called the Bobo doll study. And it was done in the early 60s, I think around 61, 62. And he did this study called the Bobo doll study, where he actually had adults. He had like this inflatable doll, which was like he had this doll, which like is just an inflatable clown. And he had adults just pummel this thing, just absolutely pummel this doll, this inflatable clown. And basically he gave it to kids, and kids mirrored. We're talking about mirroring. Kids mirrored that violent behavior that they saw the adults do. And basically that study and just basically follow-ups with that showed with this Bobo doll study that people are prone to imitate or from they observe violent behavior, they're more prone to imitate it. And so basically what happens with that, when they were observing those others violent behavior or aggressive behavior, they imitate, because the kids, they were pummeling it, they were hammering it, they threw it up in the air, they were doing all types of crazy stuff with this Bobo doll. And so with that observation, it translates substantially into the mindset of a pro wrestling fan nowadays, because what you do is you tie that in with the current landscape of pro wrestling fans. They're so tied into violence. I mean, go to any Bodunk Town, indie show. You get a hot dog and a handshake, and you're going through, you know, 5 sheets of glass and four tables, and you're having some barbed wire things on fire that you're catching, and then fans are chanting "Holy bleep." I mean, that's essentially what we're doing. I mean, we see there's reels of this everywhere. There's reels, adults endorsing and embracing aggression and violence. We see that in the realm of professional wrestling because people are imitating other people and they're becoming more aggressive and violent. And the dopamine kick that comes with the fan reaction of doing those things, that is a drug. That is someone's drug of choice when they're having that type of dopamine rush from that violent and aggressive behavior. Pro wrestling fans have gotten to the point where they're so obsessed with the sport of professional wrestling from a standpoint of violence and watching these shows. It's barely any storylines. They want the pop, they want the spot, they want they like I talked about with kayfabe. They want to become the characters of this ability to uh, uh, basically hijack the crowd, hijack the show. They want that power dynamic. And even that perspective is a sign of aggression when you're like, look, I don't care about nothing going on right now. I don't care about any type of storyline, who's the face, who's the heel. I want that feedback loop of the aggression. I want the adrenaline release. I want the endorphins release. I want the release of cortisol that causes a sense of euphoria, and that causes a sense of someone wanting that feeling of aggression or aggressive behavior over and over again, and they're willing to do things from a standpoint of a crowd perspective that they wouldn't do in regular society. There's a psychologist that talked about that when it comes to social science terms. Like there's two social science terms when it comes to this dynamic. One is called disinhibition, and then de-individualization. All right, so disinhibition, that talks about the ability to withhold inappropriate or unwanted behavior. All right, so that's disinhibition. Disinhibition. Say that in syllables. Disinhibition. Okay, so now you got de-individualization, and de-individualization is a state where people lose self-consciousness, especially when members of a group do not feel their behavior could be singled out by others. Okay, so you have the strength in numbers from a lot of this marked crowd. That's the reason why they hijack stuff all the time. That's the reason why they absolutely obliterate shows and they just hijack stuff all the time. That's the de-individualization. And then you have the disinhibition, where this is inappropriate or unwanted behavior. You merge those two together, you put that in the crowd, and you have chaos. You have marks taken over. You have inmates just running the asylum. You have people completely hijacking shows, and studies show that those types of behaviors together in a crowd, it creates a sense of a group feeling more liberated to do things that they wouldn't do normally in a crowd and in a regular society. So say, for instance, if someone's chanting blank you Cena, that's a group perspective. So if one person in that group, in that audience, was just chanting that, he or she would feel out of place. However, if the entire group is doing it, the individualization, then that person feels accepted and feels like they belong. That's you see how that works. That's an interesting dynamic, and we see that in pro wrestling all the time. We see this culture that's created by this obsessive wrestling fans that has a proclivity to violence because of their lack of management to their emotional health. Again, sports fandom itself, as I gave the example with me and my two sons, in and of itself, very positive. It's a very positive thing, psychologically and sociologically, very positive when it comes to social health overall, psychologically and sociologically. However, though, when it's tied in to poor emotional stability, low EQ, we see Twitter posts, we see social media posts, we see marks in the crowd, we see that marks with the inability to really just appreciate storylines. We see marks trying to hijack things. We see the level of obsession of a pro wrestling fan. It's so easy to hide in a group or a culture with obsessed pro wrestling fans. That's where the de-individualization come in. Because if someone in and of itself was a pro wrestling mark, what the problem is that this person would be singled out for being a pro wrestling mark. But guess what? Pro wrestling marks are a dime a dozen nowadays. And so there's no sense of feeling singled out because you're a part of the group. And that's where the disinhibition comes in, because you feel more comfortable with doing unwanted or inappropriate behavior. Someone who's obsessed with the pro wrestling culture or pro wrestling mark, that's what we deal with nowadays. And so a mark being someone who's so engrossed in the product that they can't even think, with stable emotional intelligence levels. Their emotional regulation is very, very compromised. They feel that they can engage in disinhibition more and not feel singled out because of the de-individualization, and because of that crowd perspective. You feel like you can do things that you wouldn't do in society. All of those things encompasses this pro wrestling mark culture that we see today. The proclivity for violence, the Bobo doll study when it comes to behavioral observation, and the psychology behind that, and the morph or the transition from old school pro wrestling storylines, comic book come to life, another form of a story, a male soap opera, which was a big thing that it used to be called back in the day, male soap opera. I remember explaining pro wrestling in the 90s and early 2000s and to people who didn't watch pro wrestling, and they would say, what is pro wrestling? What's the best way to describe pro wrestling? And I would say, and I would hear a lot of other people say it, it's like a male soap opera. That's basically what it was explained many times, because there was the soap opera mentality. It was the stories. It was the characters. It was the story. It was the plot. The plot started to thicken. It reached the climax. Like all those very important factors when it comes to pro wrestling for decades, that has turned into this culture that has been created where these pro wrestling obsessed fans, like uberly obsessed fans, which has been termed marks nowadays, they're so ingratiated and engrossed in the culture. And the culture nowadays is full of people who has a an obsession with violence, who has a just an addiction, a dopamine addiction to aggressive behavior and violence based on observing it. And so those people who are not emotionally stable, which we see with so many pro wrestling fans nowadays, if you don't believe me, hop on Twitter for 5 minutes. You will absolutely see it. We see that nowadays, and it's running rampant in the world of professional wrestling, even to the point that a lot of people who just watch wrestling for wrestling's sake, they hop on Twitter, they hop on the socials, they watch wrestling and look at the crowd, and they're like, "Man, I'm confused. This is not what I used to watch. This isn't it." And guess what? You have people nowadays that defend that type of behavior because of what I've talked about in previous classes: cognitive dissonance, confirmation bias, all those types of cognitive biases that causes someone to defend that type of behavior. And guess what? Because of that element of de-individualization, you have pro wrestling marks all over forums, all over socials, that's going to defend that behavior from a group perspective because they feel more free and liberated to exhibit disinhibition, showing the unwanted or inappropriate behavior. So all of those things really wrap into what makes a current day pro wrestling mark, and why the pro wrestling mark culture has taken over so much of pro wrestling, and why it's a very, very unhealthy and dangerous culture to be a part of, and how it needs to really, really be discussed, like I'm doing tonight, because it's something that pro wrestling bookers, if you realize that you're booking for the marks, you are sabotaging your company. You're absolutely sabotaging your company, because pro wrestling marks are their desire for more is insatiable. Their desire for more violence, more aggression. They're ruining the product. They're ruining the sport of pro wrestling, because guess what? You'll one more time, one more time, one more time. That right there is proof positive of why that Bobo doll experiment works. Why it worked. 60 years later, we see it right now with the one more time chance for a heel. For someone who's supposed to be a heel, they're chanting one more time. And that's where breaking kayfabe comes in. Why? Because the spectator is in the ring looking at the characters outside of the ring chanting one more time. And then you want the pop from that reaction that you're going to get from the fans cheering you, and it becomes addictive. It becomes a dopamine kick that just in the moment right there, you want it. You want that reaction from the fans chanting one more time. And then you do it, and then you get the reaction, and then you feel a sense of relief from that dopamine kick. I'm telling you, man, from a psychological standpoint, we need to pull it all the way back. And if we want this pro wrestling, the true nature of pro wrestling when it comes to characters and stories and peaks and valleys and just being so submerged into these characters and stories, the way to handle that is to rid oneself of continuing to book for the marks, because to a mark, nothing is satisfactory. Nothing is satisfactory. It's always one more time. It's a one more time mentality. It's a flavor of the month mentality. It's a this is awesome mentality to become the characters in the scenario instead of the spectators. It's the one more time mentality. It's the mentality of someone doing that extra spot in that bigger spot. Is you're jumping, you're doing a standing moonsault. Then you're doing a moonsault off the second ropes, and then you're doing a moonsault off the third ropes, and then you're doing the moonsault on the top of a ladder, and then you're doing a moonsault on the top of a cage, like, and then you're doing a moonsault on top of a rafters. Like it becomes this very addictive, you know, setting of a different plateau to get the same type of a reaction that you did when you were down here. Because down here is not enough anymore for that aggressive and violent culture. Now you got to go to here to get that same reaction. And now this isn't enough. And now you got to go here to get that same reaction. And now this isn't enough. And now you got to go here to get the same reaction. And now this isn't enough. The way to stop that, give us stories again. Give us characters again. Otherwise, there's some people who are going to get mighty, mighty, mighty hurt, man. And it's not going to be pretty. Speaking of hurt, man, there's emotional backlash that comes with this too. And a relationship has been hurt from this as well. And this is a Reddit post of someone who needed some help. This person reached out to Reddit in search of some help from let's do this. All right, so this person said, throw away as my husband is on Reddit. My husband was into pro wrestling as a kid, fell out of it. Let's do this. My husband was a kid, into pro wrestling as a kid, fell out of it. But over the last few years, let me take this off too. Let me take this border down. Yeah, I want y'all to see all of this. Yeah, there we go. My husband was into pro wrestling as a kid, fell out of it, but over the last few years has eased back into it. I've never been a pro wrestling fan. I thought it was something that people watched as kids and grew out of, but he has become obsessed and is escalating to the point where I no longer feel comfortable. Apologies, as I may not get all the terms right. I'm exposed to wrestling a lot, but I tried to avoid watching it. It started harmless enough. He'd watch the pay-per-view events like WrestleMania. Then he started watching recaps of the weekly shows. Now he's glued to the couch every night. There's a live pro wrestling event. He watches multiple wrestling shows, not just WWE. Okay, this is now the dopamine kick is starting to get bigger and bigger and more and more and more. He started spending money. I mean, a lot of money on merchandise. That's a psychological buy-in, man. People don't realize how much psychological buy-in, even from a business standpoint. I talked last week about the business end of these things happening. And you're targeting what's called your warm market. And when you know that you got your warm market, you're gonna give them merch. You're gonna kick up ticket prices. You know you have them, especially with this dopamine kick called pro wrestling. That's going to cause people to buy merchandise and buy tickets because they want to be a part of this this group to make them feel better about themselves and their inhibitions. They want to express those negative inhibitions to the standpoint of disinhibition of the inappropriate, unwanted behaviors to chant out in the feel in the crowd, to be able to live out fantasies with pro wrestlers and imagine things that you wouldn't feel comfortable with sharing. I mean, like, come on now. I see so many like random weird pictures of like female wrestlers. Like, there's people on Facebook posts just posting pics of pro wrestling women and people gawking over it. Like, I mean, you are talking about disinhibition. I mean, that right there is weird and it's creepy. But hey, if you got a lot of people doing it, that's where the de-individualization comes in. And so basically, he's been a rough spot. He started a lot of money. He started spending money. A lot of money on merchandise, t-shirts, hats, action figures, the fake belts, etc. I was okay with this as it was nice to see his passion reignited for something. He's been in a rough spot with work lately. See that? He's been in a rough spot with work lately. All right. So this is his outlet. He's in a state of emotional vulnerability. And this is his outlet from a state of emotional vulnerability. And now he's hooked. Now that dopamine has got him. He's the fish that's been hooked. Now pro wrestling is the only thing he cares about. He yells at the TV like he's part of the crowd. What did I just say? Mirroring effect, working those mirror neurons. Right there. He yells at the TV like he's part of the crowd cheering or booing. When he's watching and when he's not watching, he constantly shouts out their catchphrases randomly. He says things like yeet, acknowledge me, you can't see me, etc. Again, going back to the mirror neurons. He actually gets irritated if I don't play along with him, like if I don't raise my hand when he says acknowledge me. That's weird. This past weekend was the worst of it. Those of you who know it was WrestleMania, he asked me to refer him to the final boss all weekend. You're going back to those childlike, repressive thoughts and actions that pro wrestling can absolutely cause someone to dive into that repressive or regressive. It's a sign of regression. It's going back into a regressive mindset oftentimes. And regression is basically, Freud talks about this, Sigmund and his daughter Anna talks about this too, particularly with children. But it talks about defense mechanisms and regression is going back from one state of life or age, one age bracket or state of age or life to a former or younger or less mature stage of life. For instance, if a grown person felt some type of way that someone put their turn signal on and got in front of them in the freeway, and they start honking their horn and giving the middle finger and swerving around, that's regression. You've turned from 40 to 10. I mean, that's essentially what you've done in that split second of action, and that split second of basically your response to that event is regression. You went back to a younger state of yourself, oftentimes dealing with insecurities as well. Relationships, if someone can't take something emotionally, can't handle things emotionally like an adult, they go back to an older state in the way that they talk or the way that they respond, and their lack of emotional stability. That happens a lot when it comes to relationships as well. And so this happens here as well in this Reddit post. He said, the final boss, I laughed it off and thought he was joking, but he wasn't. We actually got into an argument about it Saturday evening because he said I wasn't supporting him in the way that he needs, and that whenever we're watching wrestling, I look bored, disinterested, etc. That sounds very manipulative. I look that way because I am. He's got to be watching wrestling 15 hours of wrestling a week easy. That's becoming obsessive there. When Jey Uso won at WrestleMania, literally jumped on top of our couch waving his arms. It was embarrassing, and I left the room. I don't want to say too much regarding our intimacy, but he's asked a lot of role. He asked for a lot of role playing lately as well, as it has me very concerned. The things he's asked me to do and say make me super uncomfortable. It's all wrestling related. Things have taken a toll on me mentally. It's nonstop. He sends me memes of Roman Reigns and a bunch of other wrestlers. He talks like them, acts like them, and demands I participate in his little performances. Sunday night, the wrestler he wanted to win didn't win, and it's still affecting him today. His mood's sour and he seems depressed. I hate to admit it, but it's been kind of nice. He hasn't been as loud and noisy as usual. So, Reddit, I need help. I just don't think I can deal with it anymore. He sings the wrestler songs. He does their sayings. He's got all their T-shirts. He's even got tickets for us for the next show coming through in about 3 weeks. But I just don't think I can take it. That right there is a perfect example. This right here, as we're reading up here, is a perfect example of obsession when it comes to pro wrestling, of someone who can't balance their fandom with their EQ level. And oftentimes their excessive fandom is a sign or a reflection of being vulnerable emotionally, getting into this pro wrestling dopamine Bobo doll experiment. Essentially, it's become a modern example of a Bobo doll experiment between adults, and we get that proclivity to violence that we have as humans. And so if we get to the point where we're watching wrestling this way, we're getting to that inhibition and the dehumanization wrapped up, put in a bow, and presented to a wife. And that's essentially what we're getting now. And that's how it can become pretty daggone unhealthy, man. It can become very, very unhealthy. And so basically that Reddit post just shows us that when it comes to pro wrestling, man, you got to control your emotional stability when it comes to it. Being a pro wrestling fan, nothing wrong with it, man. Nothing wrong. There's so many benefits, just like any other sport, man. There's so many benefits to becoming a pro wrestling fan, but it's when it's done in a way that is very unhealthy, as we continue to see through more of the progression and the current model of pro wrestling fans that we see. We just see it being so unhealthy to the point of Reddit posts being posted in that way, and people leaving because they're like, I don't know what this is, but it's weird, and I'm out. And so you got to be, if you're in that vein of pro wrestling mark or creeping up there, it's just not healthy. People just kind of accept it because it does make them feel like they belong with other misfits who are pro wrestling marks, who, again, it goes back to that de-individualization. Now we're all weird pro wrestling marks, and so now I don't feel so bad. That's the individualization. And so when you become that pro wrestling mark among pro wrestling marks, the more that's embraced and the more that's continued to be massaged and fed, the bigger it's going to become. And the worse off the sport of professional wrestling as a whole is going to be. So that's the class for today. I hope you enjoyed. And by the way, y'all, I have made my threshold. I'm over 1,000 subscribers. These classes, these weekly classes, man, has caused my channel to grow exponentially, man. Several hundred subscribers over the past few months. So thank you so much for your continued appreciation and love and excitement for these classes. I get a lot of DMs about how so many, a particular class has really enlightened them on certain concepts that they didn't even know about or they knew about, but they're starting to become more evident, similar to what's called the Bader-Meinhof effect when it comes to the frequency, the illusion of frequency or frequency of illusion. Like now you see it, and now you always see it. You know what I mean? And so it's really interesting when it comes to that. And so I thank you so much for that. I've crossed over 1,000 subscribers on YouTube, man. Bet on myself. Decided to step away from channels that I was helping, and now I'm over 1,000 subscribers, man. So thank you so much. Continue to that. It means a lot for me because I'm very I have a lot of confidence in my classes, man. I have a lot of confidence in these episodes because I do a ton of research. I've done a ton of research I've been a doctor. I've been in the psychology field for a long time now. I've been a doctor for 5 years now, and I've been in the psychology field for even in the mental health field for even longer than that. So I've done studies after academic, and now I'm studying even more, doing even more stuff. I created an entire curriculum for the college that I work on. I took over the psychology and counseling department as the chair of it. I created a curriculum, a brand new curriculum for the students. That's how much I love psychology. I love it. It's fascinating, and you can never learn enough. And so I just bring that passion over to my show, and it's working, and people are jumping on, man. So I thank you so much. All right, y'all. You know what time it is. It is now time for the question kid. All righty then. All right, let's see what we got. Hashtag AskDoc is the way to go. As you know, hashtag AskDoc is the way to go. What we got here, man? Let's zoom through here with these questions. Yeah. All right, James. I heard that Liv Morgan, CM Punk, Jade Cargill, Damian Priest, and Sheamus are going to be starting a movie very soon, according to Ringside News. I know the Liv one is true, but it is the rest. I know about Liv, but I'm not sure about the other people. You know, if so, good for them, man. Other revenue streams outside of pro wrestling. I'm all for it. I'm all for it. That's a good way to bet on yourself. I'm with it. Good for them. If Cena's a heel now, John is asking, does he still come out to the same music and same attire? Why not come out with this Thugonomics theme and not that attire? Because he knows that he'll get merch sales from people who don't care about a face or a heel. And it's unfortunate because now you got to play a heel and people don't even care. I mean, that's sad. That's really sad. James, I'm also hearing Rhea and Naomi are leaving because they want to start a family, have kids. What's WWE going to do with those people leaving? Go film a movie or have kids? Have kids. I'm all for it. I mean, Becky wouldn't have kids, and now she's back. I mean, do it. I mean, don't allow wrestling to stop you from having kids, man. Start a family. Both of them are married. You know, both of them are married to well-paid wrestlers. I mean, Jimmy Uso and Buddy Matthews both make a lot of money as pro wrestlers. They don't need, you know, their contribution financially is not necessary. Both of them are making a bunch of money. So start a family, man. Why not? I'm all for it. So still a WWE draft plan. I heard one is supposed to happen after Mania, but so far nothing. Instead, there's a call out random NXT talent showing up on Raw and SmackDown. Yeah, that was yeah. I didn't hear. I mean, I heard. I wasn't told anything about a draft, so I can't confirm that. But you know, there were reports about that. I'm not going to say, yeah, you know, I can. I don't know. I wasn't told that, so I don't know. Oftentimes they do it, you know, around this time, right after WrestleMania, but looks like we just got more of an NXT showcase. What's my opinion on Io Shi's uppercut move? the Shote, I believe. I think it's awful. What's your favorite WWE match that never gets talked about? Mine's the Al Snow Hardcore Holly Mississippi Ripper match. I mean, it's EO Sky, man. It's EO Sky being EO Sky, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, what do you expect? My favorite match, I would say one of my favorites. I'm sure that there's a lot, but I would say one of them is I marked out. Speaking of Mark, I marked out with a 1993 version of a Mark was just an avid wrestling fan. I marked out when uh, Mr. Perfect, Ric Flair, loser leaves WWE match. It was an episode of Raw, I believe, and Mr. Perfect won, and I thought it was amazing. The People's Wrestling Channel. Well, I'll be watching WWE Unreal. Probably not. Probably not. Why is Backlash getting a better build than Mania? Because people were expecting The Rock, and there was just a bunch of stuff that was in there. So, why are Insider Times now a part of commentary? Because it's unreal. See what I did there? It's unreal. All right. Any ideas of things I could add to my watch alongs? A part of unboxing and a quiz. Let's talk about that at the after party. Daniel Mo, a wife was asking if she separates from her husband. Her husband has become so obsessed with wrestling, he told his wife to acknowledge him and even did the yeet hand emotion to J1. Yeah, I was just talking about that. Yeah, weird. I mean, like obsession, man. Obsession in its finest. Daniel, I really enjoy your channel. It's good content that really gets you thinking. Keep up the good work. Thank you, man. I really, really appreciate that. I really appreciate that. Does it bother you, Jimmy? James asking how we want to call him. Terry Knox like a total mark, especially McAfee. I don't recall Jim Ross, Jerry Lawler being marks. If they did, it made cause of the roster then. Jerry Lawler was a mark for women's wrestlers, puppies, but it was his character though. He was a commentator that had some weird, creepy obsession with women, and so that was his character. He was still in character. Jim Ross was not. The only thing he was in character, man. He hated Triple H. He'd always say bad things about Triple H, which was interesting. And he'd always, applaud Stone Cold. And so, yeah, I mean, that was a cool dynamic. But commentators being marks, man, that just breaks another layer that should be very protected. It should be protected, man. It really should. All those things should be protected. The less that they're protected, the more that fans think that they can just barge into creative meetings and do whatever the heck that they want. I've said that before, and I'll say it again. As long as it happened, I'm going to keep saying it. Wrestling fans feel confident nowadays to barge in to creative meetings and do whatever the heck they want. Uninvited, by the way. They can just cheer and boo and chant and cuss and do whatever they want to. All right, let's see. Let's just break some things down. All right, for the second time. Ben, great subject. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Yes, R.I.P. Mongo McMichael. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Prayers to his family and friends. Man, he fought. He was in hospice, and he was under care for a while, and he fought. So, just like his Super Bowl, just like his pro football career, he was a fighter, man. Prayers to his family. People's Wrestling Channel. $40,000 for SummerSlam tickets. Yeah, I think that's the VIP package, but still, it's been nuts for sure. Let's see here. Michael Pastellano, the sitcom audience hijacking discussion last night during Legion of Raw, comparing it to Wrestling Marks was hysterical. Yeah. It's a sitcom audience. Uh, it was a great comparison, man. I mean, I think at the end of the day, you just got to think about it that way. Like, I grew up watching the Cosby Show, and I always say this. In hindsight, I was inspired by Cliff Huxtable, not Bill Cosby. To me, they are two completely different people. Um, but Cliff Huxtable was an inspiration to me. And imagine growing up and watching the Cosby Show. um, and all of a sudden, Cliff Huxtable says something very, very, uh, very, very wise and very sagacious to Theo. Just very riveting, very poignant to Theo. And people love the fact that Cliff said this to Theo. And all of a sudden the audience says, Cliff Huxtable, Cliff Huxtable, Cliff Huxtable, Cliff Huxtable. That would be the weirdest, stupidest, most embarrassing thing of the entire show. But now that's normal. Very weird. People's Wrestling Channel had a gimmick on my YouTube channel where I was a hardcore champion and anyone or anything could beat me. Do you reckon I should bring that back? No, I don't think you should bring that back. Would making a character out of being a mark bring in views? If you're desperate for if you're desperate for views, which marks are, perhaps, but all money ain't good money is what we used to say when I was growing up. All money ain't good money. So think about that for sure. Let's see here. Okay. Again, Ask Doc is the way to go. Y'all have some absolutely great comments on here. Again, Ask Doc. I got Benjamin here. And all of this has been taken advantage of for millennia. At least Christians versus Lions and gladiatorial combat days since the give the baby to Moloch days. Yeah, I mean the Book of Numbers talks about that. The Book of Molech. Yeah, I mean it's some crazy stuff, man. We've been seeing this obsession. Exactly, man. That's a really good point. We've been seeing this, especially from gladiator days. That was the thing in Rome back in the day. That was the unfortunate part when it comes to Molech in the book of Leviticus. Yeah, Leviticus, right? Yeah, Leviticus, I believe it was. But yeah, I mean, it's we've seen that, and we've seen just the history of Nero, for instance. We've seen that. We've seen Nero having the Christians versus Lions you discussed. That was back in the day, especially in the early in the mid 100s, in the mid first century AD. That was something that would happen quite a bit. You would have people like Nero, for instance, that would just basically have this young Advent movement of Christians. Paul and Peter talks about this. This stuff is really talks about it in the book of Peter, First and Second Peter. First Peter, from over a standpoint of separating Christians, young Christians separating themselves from this Hellenistic, hedonistic culture that they're in, And then Second Peter talking a lot about challenging and calling out Christians that have assimilated often in many ways to that culture. And so we saw that historically in Peter's writings uh, when he was dealing and observing or getting accounts of these things of, Nero and, just emperors and leaders at that time, basically sending Christians to the Colosseum, and people would be in the Colosseum and they would have they would get excited and about seeing this bloodthirsty, gory activity. And we see it now, man. I mean, again, you want to talk about nothing new under the sun, as Ecclesiastes talks about. There you go. Moloch, with children, you know what I mean? It's very, very sad. Very, very sad. All right. Let's see here. We got some marks in the building. Yep. Very, very clear. There was some, yeah. People calling him idiot. Very interesting. So someone popped in. It was a mark for a second, which was my proof. And of course, I'm not going to put stuff like that on the screen. So, all right. So yeah, y'all got some good comments on here. Axe Doc is the way to go. If y'all want it on the screen, Axe Doc. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. And these comments are awesome, man. We got some newbies as well. Again, Axe Doc. We got people commenting, but they're not putting Axe Doc. So there you go. All right, y'all. There you go. There you go. Let's great comments, y'all. Great comments. I think let's see if I'm missing. Yeah, scary behaviors. Absolutely. Scary behaviors. All right, wonderful, 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 wonderful comments here. This is great. This is awesome, man. Here's the thing, man. The thing is with marks is they want so much attention, and then once you get to the point of the only thing that you have to do, especially this is my channel. Like, are you kidding me? I can do whatever the heck I want with my channel. Especially the only thing you have to do, the way to shut off, to pull the plug for a mark, delete. I think I got a see if I got a sound bite for that. That would be pretty cool, man. Delete. Yeah, I mean, this completely proves my points of my entire class today. Absolutely. Completely proved my point for my entire class. That did it 100%. The proof positive was one person in the chat somehow being a member of my channel. Wonderful. That's awesome. And being a mark. There you go. Wonderful. Delete. All right. We got Rollin in the building. What's up, my man? Let's see here. We have, from what you know, was Vince McMahon ever a fan of pro wrestling, or was he just an observer that entered the business only because his father owned a promotion? That's interesting. It's interesting. Ask that question. I know that from what I know, I pick people's brains all the time who knows people. And from what I understood, Vince would always share stories about how his father was so integrated in the pro wrestling business, and he wanted to emulate his father from a business standpoint, and that required him just really getting into the business end of the pro wrestling end. So you don't really see Vince McMahon, in the same conversations as like, hey, I used to hang out with this and I used to watch this back in the day. And I don't think Vince ever really expressed that when he was a kid. He actually went through his childhood was actually pretty stormy. It was actually pretty difficult. Zubair, don't think I would be able to join the after party. Just got the news after 3 weeks of training. My coach wants to book me for a show. Any advice for the upcoming wrestlers? Man, this is good. Okay, I actually gotta go. Man, you see this is the reason why you should join the after party, man. Real quick, because I gotta go, but this is actually good. And this is from a standpoint of someone who used to amateur wrestle and train to do pro wrestling and picks the brains of pro wrestlers all the time. I would say an advice from what I have asked people is to stand out amongst the crowd. Don't look like a mark, and have a level of confidence that commands the room, but don't get to the point where it's like arrogance, because that can be very off-putting. So there you go. All right. Let's do let's end it on there, ladies and gentlemen. Let's end it right there. Of course, that's great. Wonderful, y'all. Great class. Lots of fun, man. Lots of fun. Again, if you have not subscribed to the Pancakes and Power Slam show, you see that right there? Hit that sub button. Not that. I mean, don't click on that right there, because it's nothing will happen. But you can click a little bit underneath this video on YouTube, and right there, boom, subscribe. It's right there. It's right there waiting for you. If you haven't subscribed yet, the only thing you have to do is just boom, subscribe. We've reached over 1,000 now, ladies and gentlemen, on my YouTube page. Grown exponentially since these classes, and I really, really, really appreciate it. Like people like Rollin right there in the comments, like Heel Biz in the comments, just completely promoting the show, stuff like that. I'll get applause for that, because you have buy-in and you believe in Pancakes and Power Slam show. So I really, really appreciate that. It means a lot to me. This is 1,000 on the road to 1 million. I'm telling y'all, and I think y'all know me enough to stamp this. When we get to 1 million subs, I'm still going to be rocking with y'all on Tuesday nights, going into Wednesday mornings, having fun with y'all, having a great time with y'all. And yeah, man, just having an amazing time. I mean, we'll have thousands of people here on a weekly basis, even tens of thousands of people here on live. And guess what? I'm still going to be playing this music at the end, rocking with y'all. It's a lounge feel. We respect each other. We're not marks over here. We are highly intellectual people who have an affinity for pro wrestling in some capacity. Me, not necessarily currently, but I get paid to watch professional wrestling, and I'm one of those people. Me and Michael Pesolano have talked about this on the after party. We're a part of the pro wrestling community that's has an allegiance to pro wrestling because we love the tradition of pro wrestling, and we've been watching pro wrestling for so long, and so now we watch it, to do more. And I talk about it every week. Now it's more of a compare and contrast type of case study every single week when it comes to pro wrestling for a lot of my supporters. And Michael talked about that too, as far as he agrees with that assessment. And he's one of those people. Zubair has talked about that before too. All right, y'all. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, appreciate all of your support every single week. Until next week, enjoy your week of wrestling. God bless, and always remember, I do it for you. Share, promote, comment on YouTube. So as I get off of here, comment on YouTube. Boost those algorithms to get even more views, more clicks, more likes. Who wouldn't want to look at a thumbnail, an attractive thumbnail that talks about psychology of a pro wrestling mark, and click on it and know the psychology behind it? Who wouldn't want to do that? Who's a pro wrestling fan? But the only way that they can do it is with your help of liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing. That boosts up the algorithms to let people know, oh, okay, well, this is on my front page now. Oh, this is on my suggestions. You are the one to do that and help that. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Till next week, and enjoy your week of wrestling. God bless. And I'll say it again. Always remember, I'll do it for you. Have a good night, everybody. So long.